All right, you guys, welcome. We're going to talk about multi-record tables today and multi-record forms and building those forms. So we'll start with, where do we want to start? Talking about multi-record tables, just in general, to make sure that you guys understand that part. Under settings and then tables and fields, you'll find a list of all the tables built into SAM. Any tables that besides the main entity table or the case table that do not have this little tilde at the end are multi-record tables. And multi-record table means that there's a collection of data points you want, and you'll allowing users to track many potential records. So you may have one adoption, but you might have 3 adoptions for like a sibling group. Or as an example, for post-adoption reports, you would have, I've heard like between 3 to, there could be 10 or 20 post-adoption reports on one adoption record. And so if there were 3 adoptions, you're looking at 20 post-adoption reports if it were like international and the child was adopted at a young age and needed to carry those post-adoption reports forth many times. Other really common examples are case notes, communications, documents, people that live in their home, progress reports, things for foster care often are monthly reports or progress reports. Things that really happen consistently are going to be multi-record tables. And I do believe my favorite way of building a form at this point is by coming to the tables, choosing the table that you're going to build off of by clicking into it and then selecting create new form from there. So we will build something off of really any table. So I'm probably going to build just off of my test record. I've got a new multi-record table built under the case table name. And really and truly, like if you were starting something brand new, you could create a new table. So maybe we'll actually jump from there also. When you create a new table, you'll select the parent entity. So one of your main entity types, is it a family table or a birth parent or foster parent or child? You can open it up and choose a more targeted parent record for it. So if it's not directly under the family, like it could be based under the case, meaning that it's some sort of service or something about your services that you're tracking. It could even be, as we saw like with post-adoption reports, more specific under an adoption record. So you could have post-adoption correspondence or post-adoption reports. It won't really matter, but you'll choose the parent entity first. I'm going to choose up under the case, and you can name the table. So this will be a multi-record table under the case. And you will always check that it has multiple records per parent under the table. My visibility has a couple of additional fields that you won't ever see. So you'll check this though. That's what is going to be important for you, is just saying that the system can collect multiple records of this. And then you press save. By default, when you create a new table, all of these fields are going to be built. So entered by, date, where it was entered, what form it was entered from, last modified, date by, and when it was last modified from, and then a record ID. So those things will automatically be there, and they are not editable for your team, so that is just tracking in the background, helps with modification, history, recording. So 2 ways to build multi-record forms based off this table. So really standard way is this multi-record standard form setup. This sets up 3 forms for you. It will set up an overview form, which is set as a multi-record form. Generally, this will have a subset of the data points, and it'll be kind of a high-level overview. We'll also create a single record where you're adding or editing one of the records at one time. And that form will generally have all of the fields that you want on it. You can, though, have different forms based off of it, where you might have a details form that has got a whole bunch of fields. This standard form setup links the overview form to, or the, rather, let me start from the single record. It links to add the single record form to the multi-record form as its add, edit, and details form. And so just to be clear what that means here, if I pull in and look for test record, and we can go to communications. This all communications is a subform. So is this case note subform. It just happens to be filtered on a specific subset of records, but this is a subform and it's an overview. We're really just showing 5 fields: the communication, entered by, the date time rather, entered by, topic type, subject, and body trimmed. And then the single record form is connected here through the little meatball menu, and it allows us to edit or access the details record. We can change settings of the subform for where the add form is linked. Can either be linked here with a plus sign and or over here on the sidebar. It's really a preference of where your team likes to enter data from. If you have lots of subforms on, like this one, how there's this case note subform and all communications. This one does not have the add form up here, but this one does. And it could be totally different forms. It's kind of up to you again of like what you're requesting your user to enter as far as data. But when we do the multi-record standard form setup, it's going to be creating this add, or we just add one communication at a time, the edit to edit it one time, and the details link, which is all going to be set as one form. So like right here, we're just adding one communication at a time. So over here, when wrong form. This is my table that I was on. And close all these. So on my table, my multi-record table built under the case, I can use this setup and it's going to make all the connections that I need. So my choices here are to mirror it. Typically when I'm building it, I'm going to mirror everything first, and then I'll unlink them to put additional fields on because it allows me to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Then I can also link this over to, I'm going to put it on the cover page, the domestic family cover page, and I'll call it multi-record table under the case. It's really just taking the same form name, but I could label it anything else. It's like Sam Talks multi-record form. Okay. And when I press save, that will be ready. The form does not have any fields. And if you notice up here, it's taking me to the add edit details form of it. If I click under form properties, it will show me a lot of detail about how this form is built. So this is the table structure. This happens to be, or I guess it's really the form and the table structure, because these are settings for the form. It's a one at a time or a single record form that's set as both view and edit. And it's for the multi-record table under the case. And that's the hierarchy of the table setup. It's got a sibling form because I set for them to be mirrored, that it's looking the same as this overview form. If I right click and open this up, I can see that this is connected. The field layout, the forms are derived from that original form that it placed us on. This case added or multi-record table under case added details. The multi-record standard form setup also sets, like I said, the add, the edit, and the details form all are the same exact form that it's connected to, which is also in this case the sibling form where it's mirrored. And it also is set up for us when we add a single record or edit a single record, it's going to take us back to that overview page. On the overview form, it has under here the form that includes the subform, which is the container form. And I'll go over these when we building these separately also, because there's lots of reasons why you might want to do that as well. And so we'll build out a container form or add it to a different container form. But this is the container form, and then you can click there, and this is the third form. So all it shows right now is that there is a subform for a subform, which is the overview or multi-record form for this table. So it has no fields on there. So we will go and add fields. We have to add fields on the case table. So I've just right-clicked here. This is the table here, and we can build some fields in. So new field, title. And then we'll put in put this as a text field. And this saved some titling. So let me go and change that. That's not what I actually named it. New field title is what I really titled it. And then if I go back to the table, I could add another field, and I'll just add a date field. Get out of there, and hopefully that won't do the same. Set it as a date. So now I've got some fields to play with on it. I'm going to go back over to my multi-record table form that's built. This one is actually the single record because this is where everything's mirrored against this one. And I'll just add those two fields. Just click here, I'll get a date field and the other. Press save. So now this is all connected. It literally is available to work. And so if I pop in over here and go to my test record, and then go to the domestic, because that's the domestic case for this record, we'll see over here on the sidebar the new the new multi-record table form that I connected it to. So here, with just a few clicks, I've really built a new form that we can use to track information. The add forms are connected. We've got an add form on the sidebar and over here. And then I'll pop in. I'm getting one record at a time. I'll put in today's date, or this date, and then new data point, and press save. And now I've got my first record. I'm taken back to that overview form where I've got my first record, and I can certainly go and add another record in here, new data 2. Okay, and so I'm just starting to build out my tracking. All of this is available to use now on auto actions or reports. You can pull this information into templates. It's really ready for you to go in under, well, now I've been talking for 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, you have a new tracking. It's really like any kind of spreadsheets that your team may have, keeping separately, you can often build them up into SAM. So, but now that I've built it using the standard form setup, there's lots of other ways and things that you may want. So as an example, let's see, if I go to this details form right here, it's going to look exactly the same. It's just going to be a view form of those two data points. But maybe we have some memo fields, or, you know, we just have a lot more information. We really may want to capture those details here in this detail view, but not necessarily have them, all of those fields on our container form. So I'm going to go back to my table, and I'm going to choose under, right now it lives under advanced options. We're probably going to change this, is create new form from the table. So this is going to be our multi-record table details form. And we can give it a different name, and I'll just call it the details form to make that clear. This time I'm building this only as a one at a time. I'm not using the multi-record standard form setup, and I don't need it to be a multi-record, because a multi-record is going to allow you to see many records at one time. I just want to look at one record at a time, but I want to look at a lot of detail about that record. Generally, I'm going to create this as a view and an edit so that your team can edit that information individually. And then I get to also set out the form layout. I think vertical is going to look absolutely best for somebody doing data entry. It's simple, it's long, it's like the form that we're looking at here. But you can also go wider into the horizontal layout. These two options don't really apply when you are building a single record form. You're not going to hide it because you're adding a record or editing a single record, so that doesn't really make sense. And then creating a container form is not necessary for a single record form either, because it's always got to be linked to a multi-record. Well, for the most part, it's linked, but you will never, if it's a multi-record table, you are not, I don't want to say, you have to view all of the records in order to view one record at a time. Yeah, you're not able, the container form just doesn't make sense. So in an upcoming version of SAM, these two options won't be there any longer once you choose a single record. So those options just don't apply to this. We'll create this. I'm going to add some fields. I'm going to add both the fields that we added, but I'll go ahead and enter in when we entered it. And I like to enter when it was entered through a form so that we can tell how somebody did data administration. We could certainly add a section and put record details here to just move some of this case-based or this data entry stuff over here. If I wanted to add more fields, I've got to go back to the table. So I can always open that in a new tab and add more fields. New field for memo. And stick that here. Put it as a text. It's a large multi, and we can set it to an unlimited length. And then go back to our form and add that new field on here. So this is now our details form, but it's not connected to anything. It doesn't tell us that it's connected to anything here. It's really just sitting in SAM. We're not able to really access this form at this point. So if I go back to, here's my container form, I can go into the multi-record subform, which is here. And I can unlink this now, but I don't even know that I have to unlink it. If I go to form properties, I'm really looking to set for multi-record forms the details page that it's connected to, and I'm going to connect it to a different form. So then what this will do once it's saved, is here. I'm going to go back to Barry, to the home screen, and jump over to this new container rec form. Oh, wait a second. Sorry, that is not where I put that. Go back to here and go to the domestic. It's the Sam Talks form. And once I pop here, now when I go over to my details form here, I'm going to be looking at the more detailed information. But it did not affect when I add a form, I still get just the date and the new title. Okay, so I have the ability to change my view. And so what I see this used in a lot is like, if you're adding an adoption record, the adoption generally, if your team does this in time, when you are doing an adoption, it's when you match. You're choosing the family or the child and the commitment or match date, and maybe a memo, maybe somebody that's working or supporting that effort, and that's it. You're not needing to enter, when you add an adoption record, the adoption finalized date, as an example. You're not adding the adoption attorney. Some of these details might not even be known. And so that's kind of the reasoning why you would have a details form, is just to simplify your team's data entry on adding a record versus editing a record versus looking at more detailed information. When I look at this details form, this has an edit link already here, so I can literally go and edit any fields that are editable. So these, let me back up, just tick. These fields here are not editable. And when I click on this edit, you'll see that they disappear from my view. We're not able to edit that because that is something that Sam sets automatically. But I can go in, enter all information here. I think what's not known a lot of times to people is that this stretches. So if you need more space, you can open up more visibility if you have a longer bit of text. There are also things that I think folks don't necessarily know about form setup. So I'm going to leave that. And that is, what am I going to do? Is it here? I think it's over here actually under advanced form properties, is you can set up these forms to have the fields be vertically stacked. And that can really help with some of the layout issues that people experience. Now that I've got that set, I'm going to jump back, go over here again, and look at the same record. And go to his domestic case and scroll down to this here and go back over to our details form. And the layout's just going to be slightly modified to show things stacked. And it's really a preference of what makes sense to your team and the kind of data that's being entered. Really long memos is often good. A lot of forms in other software programs you'll find are all going to have this sort of look to them where they're vertically stacked. So it's kind of up to you of how you prefer to see it and how your team prefers to see it. They're useful. You guys have any questions on the connections of the add, edit, or details form and why you might use them differently? Multi-record forms in their setup today do not allow you to choose that it's a public form, but you could create them as a public form. How you allow an end user to access them can vary. So if you have a form, let's see, this is our details form. So it's a single record form. If it's a form based off of multi-record table, which is what we're talking about today, under advanced options and advanced form properties, you can set it as a public form just by clicking and setting it as yes. So that form should be removed from any internal form connections that you want or that you may have. I wonder what it does here. If we go back and refresh, does it, how does it do when it becomes a public form? It's actually just taking, so if a form is connected to an internal form and it's a public form, it's taking to a public form view, and like the view as a public form, and it's only the view form. So your team won't really be able to do anything with this, right? You can't edit it. You can't really do anything here. So you'll want to make sure that it's connected or set up properly. Let's see. So I'm going to change that back so that everything works as expected. If I, let's see, build a form, wonder if actually, let's look at post-adoption reports. We might have some forms already built here based off these. So when you go to tables and you select on a specific table, there is a section called forms used on, which is a link to all of the forms that are based off this table. So this is a really helpful view. It's a different view than going to settings and forms and just getting a full list. It should give you the same list if you filter down to that specific table, but it's a nice way to just be clear of what you've got going on. We have post-adoption reports that are set up why? Because they say they're public forms for a post-adoption report in a part 1 and a part 2. And then we'll allow the user, the end user, to see this through an overview form. So let's kind of follow the trail. This overview form, when I look at form properties, is connected to adoption details. And when you're sharing these multi-record, you through the family portal, through public forms that are set as view, you have to go up the hierarchy. So if I pop back here, let me go to settings, tables. Right, if I want to build public forms for post-adoption reports, I would actually have to give my end user the guidance to actually get to that public form. So I could build forms based on like the case, like a public form based on the case that includes a multi-record form for adoption that then also shows a multi-record form for post-adoption reports underneath, but I'm not able to just show post-adoption reports to them because Sam needs to represent who is that post-adoption report for what specific adoption is it for. So you'll want to follow that trail back up. That's important. Let's click in here. There's also, here we've got 2 different forms where we're just showing the due date. This other form doesn't even have any fields on it. So we could build out this quite a bit and then look at them. The other way to provide a form that's a multi-record form like this to an end user is through a template. If you have a template based on post-adoption reports and there's a post-adoption report coming due for a family, you might send them an automated email that says, hey, you've got this post-adoption report that's due. Here's the link to the form. That will have the necessary connections to the adoption and the post-adoption report that then they can fill out and they can get right there. So instead of taking them through the checklist or through a family portal form, you could actually take them direct here by connecting to a template. Let's see. So these aren't really built out. We could do that setup. Let me see if I've got this here. Family post-adoption reports. And I've got one that's due. Okay. Your post-adoption report is due. And let's say, okay, I don't really know what those this is saying, but please fill out the post-adoption report form here, right? And now we can insert from Sam and insert a form link. And here I'll be able to choose a public form. Right here. So Sam is telling us, am I taking it to an internal form or a public form? Sam doesn't know by default on this template if you're sending it to the family or you're sending it to a team member, because your team members could for sure get to, the detail form of this. But let's say that we're taking them to this form. So we've got them to the due date and we'll press save. Let's see. So this is the all. Let me go back here and look at this form. This due date part 1 is really just got the due date. Let me add a field or 2. I don't like any of these. I'll just stick in the memo. You could have all kinds of fields. I know you guys have for your post-adoption reports a whole form that you're asking of just narratives of the child's well-being and how the family's well-being is after an adoption every month or so after a child is placed in the home. So that's kind of what you'd be looking to input here. And then let's go do this. Let's see if Barry has any no adoptions and if he's got any post-adoption reports. So does he have? He's got one child, but no child listed. So let me stick this in here. Okay, so we've got no child. I'm going to put in this child name. And let me jump back to the post-adoption reports. Cool. So we have one due date. I'm just going to add one more. This will be part number 2. It'll be a self-report, and the due date would be 6/1/2025. Okay. So from here on the family, I can click in and go a template. We're going to send them an email, and we're going to look at multi-record templates. I'm going to send them the par due. I think at this point, Sam's going to give me 2 potential records, right? Because it doesn't know which template do we want to send from. So it is either the one for 4/30 that's due 4/30 or the one due 6/1. So let's go ahead and send them this. And so here is the email ready to go. If I open this up, I think it's going to ask me to log in. But up here is got the connection. And so because it's not asking me to log in, it's just showing us the information. And it may be because of the way that I clicked it, but it's got the adoption ID and the post-adoption report ID connected in the string. I don't expect you guys to know this. It's more just so that you can see as we're going through this, that it's got those connections to it. So the family's really going to get here. Wait a second. Why is it doing this? Well, that's not what I want. So this, I don't know why. I'm a little bit not technical in that way of why is it taking me to that link. Sam is through a secure connection, so I think it's something to do with my test environment that's creating it, right? When it goes through HTTPS, it's going through secure, so I'm not 100% what's missing in the URL string that's making it that, but this will bring you to the connection of that. Let me look here. If I jump here and go to, I just need to, what is this guy's email? Go to the email address. Pretty sure I know how to get there. The public form, but I wanted to show through the family portal, open the public form. Okay. This out. I think I got my password right. And I'm going to log into the family portal and just show you these public forms. So our public form, the way it's set up is the family has to go to their adoption records first. And they have it on a different case. So here's my adoption record for Stephen Corning, who we looked at just a minute ago. I'm going to look at that details page. And it should show us on here both post-adoption reports. This is the one that I want to complete so I can pop in and edit it. And it's taking me through. Here's my new details. And part one, I'm assuming takes us to part two, which we knew there were no fields on there. If I save through that, it's just ending it. However, now that data is inside of SAM. So if I jump back over here and go to my post-adoption reports, my 430 details of this, here's this information that I input. So the data comes in, the template will allow you to take the family direct to it, or you could have a structured approach to how you want to provide a multi-record form to your families through a family portal. Let me jump back here a bit. Right, so if I'm back on this page, I needed to share the adoption information, which I've just chosen to put it off to the sidebar, showing them their adoptions. Here's their adoption records. And then you could absolutely have multiple, a multi-record form here on each of these adoption records to not force your families to go to a different page. If you have a bunch of families who have a lot of adoptions, it might become a lot of information to see. And that's the only reason we're taking them to a different page to then be more specific of what they're looking for. This correspondence is kind of between the family and a birth parent. So that's the intent of that. They can also add records where, again, a single record, they're adding one bit of data at a time today. And here's my information that I'm adding today. How are you guys using this? I know David's on the phone or on the call, and he is using the public forms for multi-record for post-adoption reports. I think they've got a fairly lengthy post-adoption report that is being requested for families to complete. It was like lengthy in that it's multiple parts. Are there other things that your teams are using this for today? And do you have any questions on the building of it? So really you can build out all kinds of things. It's just kind of building the tools and making the connections together. Mona, how does your team use it? Do you guys do anything with post-adoption reports?
Yeah, I think we have it set up for post-adoption reports. We have a lot of different countries and yeah.
Do you have any questions on the building? Are there any parts of it that feel confusing?
To be honest, a little bit, but I think I'm more of like a doer. So once I try it out, it might click a little bit more for me, but I feel like I'm getting a general idea of how things are linked up. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
when they log into their portal there to choose their post-adoption report, there's a field that is like they have to choose their case, like if they have
Mhm.
multiple cases.
That
Is there
case navigation.
yeah, is there a way to filter out cases on that so they're not seeing their junk cases?
There's not at this time there, because right there, the challenge with that is what makes it for AGC a junk case versus nightlight. There's got to be some kind of connection that everybody's agreeing on. And at this point, nobody really agrees. It's not that, we've had any squabbling or anything like that. Obviously, it's just what is the consistency in the data entry that would allow that to be known. So we've had requests to lock a case. Even that can be fairly loaded as like, are we locking it for end users? Are we locking it for team members of doing data entry? Everybody has their kind of own determination of that. And then what does lockdown even mean? Right? Is it not available through public forums, or is it no data entry can be done at all except for a SAM lead? What's the goal? And I think it's a big bite, really and truly, to then get everybody to be consistent on that. Is a little bit of our challenge with how to lock it down. So they're not able to, it seems to want to consistently take me to case 10, which I think is just a made up number here. I don't know. And because I think it's a made up number, and the other, well, I guess I'm currently being shown case 2, and case 10 feels like the record that I could go to. I think Sam is taking you to the higher family case number, but I don't know if that's actually set by case entered date or if it's case number specifically. And we have agencies that renumber case number to something completely different, like 201, 202, because it means something to them. So the case numbering doesn't even mean anything in logistics of SAM anymore. Do you guys have, because we get asked that on a regular basis, but do you have a way that you designate a case as being active or something that you no longer want? And like, will you use the term junk case, but what
Well,
does that
when I
mean?
mean junk case, it's like every time they fill out a pre-app, it's a new case. So you have a bunch of inquiry closed cases, like if they had done 4 pre-apps before they actually adopted. So all those are listed and they have to choose their like post-adoption case. So I was just seeing if there's a way to clean that up.
Well, a couple things, because if your families are actually entering pre-applications so many times and creating multiple cases, you might change that public form that they're building from. Let me go to one. Um, any public form based off the case has used existing case criteria. By default, it's usually based on entered date, case entered date within the last 12 months. But if that doesn't make sense to you, because it doesn't necessarily make sense to everybody, again, it depends on how you see your process happening. You might set it as if the case stage is still an inquiry, and you might not close inquiries. Like, you might determine a different point in time or a different piece of logic that tells Sam to keep using the same case, unless, David, you guys are wanting them every time they create pre-apps to create a new case.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Some of those things just go for years in the past. So
Yeah.
who
Well, you
knows?
can always change it going forward, right? It won't really do anything, and there's no case merge function for historical records, besides you just eliminate one of them, just delete the case that exists. But yeah, you could change the setup of a public form. I do believe this is only necessary for case-based forms. Let's just look at that really quick. This is domestic, right? So this is the public forum for post-adoption reports, and the use existing case is not here because it doesn't make a difference for this particular form. But sending them direct to this through a template, which I think is how you guys have it set up, David, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time.
Yes, they get an email that has a link to the template.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys see any other applications for this? Like, I know one of our agencies has a very robust family portal, and they have a lot of foster parent monthly reports that are, again, the parent may have 2 and 3 kids inactively placed in their homes. So they have to go to each individual child to then fill out monthly reports. They've got it set up where they have different subforms, like we've looked at through this communications, where we've got this just filtered on case notes, and these are all communications, but for their progress reports being like, these are the ones that are overdue, these are all the ones that are complete, and here are the completed public forms based our progress reports, because that's how the family thinks of them, where all they can do is actually view that data. They can't edit the form once they've marked it as complete again. And so it's really like adding a series of subforms on here. The multi-record forms, let's talk about that because we really did not. Let's see, what could I build here? These are post-adoption reports. So this is going to show all the post-adoption reports. I'm going to put this one as like we did it today. Okay. And then I've got an auto action showing up. But what I'm looking to do, I'm just going to cancel that, is go over to post-adoption reports. And I am now going to create a new form. And so I'm going to base this on, this is going to be post-adoption reports complete. Okay. This is going to be a multi-record form. So it automatically is a subform. It's a view form because I don't want them to go and edit many of these records at a time. I just want them to display a little differently. And I'm going to put it as a single row. I'm going to add it to another form, so I don't need a container form here. And I will, though, set it to hide when it's empty. So here, let me go and take this out. Okay. So I'm going to end up putting it on this form. And I'm going to set this to hide it when it's empty. So I don't want to look at a section of form that says there are no completed post-adoption reports. I only want to see the post-adoption reports once they're done. I'm going to add fields. I'll put in the due date, completed date, and the PAR record. Maybe I'll put the investigator on here too. Okay, so let's do number 1 was completed, the PAR, etc. But I am going to add a filter here. So my filter, and under subform options, I've got some different settings here. The filters, I will tell my form that I only want to see these when completed and sent date is not empty. So once we've totally marked this as done, and now I'm going to add it to that other form. So I'm going to pop over here because I don't know where that other form is and go and edit it. And then this has a subform called cover page, which is funny, but I'm going to add a subform. And it's post-adoption. Post-adoption reports complete is the form that I just built. Now, we start building lots of forms. We have definitely seen situations where really just the wrong form is chosen. Naming your forms well will help you. Naming them, we consistently use overview or container form. We also consistently use add edits or details form, because they track in line with how those linkages are. So that'll be something to know. People there's no naming convention that is automated consistently. So choosing the right form is going to be important, and I'm going to stick this on here. So here's my complete. This is going to still show all of them. So I could literally pop in here and say, add filters here where the complete instant date is empty, right? So we're now looking at both. When I pop over here, refresh, nothing's really going to change in this screen once the page refreshes completely, because that post-adoption report's complete is set up to hide when it's empty. But again, if I put in this date today, now it opens up and the record has been moved. This is cool. This is also equally uncool. It's uncool when people don't know that it's going to happen, or you have no messaging kind of alerting people of what's going on. And when you do this, so we definitely get tickets that come in that say, I can't find my records. Couple of things going on there is one, will always check filters. You can see I didn't go back and change my report, my form name. So that makes it a little bit tough to know, try to find. So I might go in and go to my form properties, post-adoption reports complete, right? And kind of setting it up. Right, that will change and that will help a little bit. You can also add messaging on your forms, which we see some agencies use very well. That something like this might be helpful. The other thing that we see come in that's come in the last couple weeks is, shucks, do we have just 20 records? Where is a family that has more? There is, let me see, can I find this family? This family's still in here. This family should have bunches of records. So when you have a multi-record form, one of the settings, and it's a multi-record, well, I think it can be view or edit, is you get to decide how many records is it displayed by default. So by default, you could set it to 100 and it would be pulling a lot of data. Your form will run slower because it's got to pull in all of this information at one time. But you can also have it show a certain subset of the records, and this seems to not be understood by folks. But if you click view all, then it will open up everything so you can see all of them. In lieu of that, having a report on link to the sidebar will link to this information, where then again, you're seeing all of their communication records. It's filtered to that specific record, and then you can see all of the detail here. Something that I don't think a lot of people know, but is possible, is these subrecords, subrecords like a communication. If there is a detail form set up, you could go and edit the value and actually open the details form. So you can get right to the specific record you're looking at from a report, and go and make modifications to that if you needed to, or just see all of the detail in a form view. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these multi-record forms, when you set them up as horizontal, they look real nice on, well, let's say, depending on their setup and the type of fields that you have, they can look quite nice on a laptop or a monitor that's a widescreen. They don't render as well on mobile. So if your team happens to look at this type of record all the time on mobile, in the interim, you might set them to be more narrow. 3 fields across looks the best to me. But a lot of forms, right? The thing with mobile is either going to force you into a scroll bar across horizontally, or it's going to stack things vertically. This work is a lot of paperwork, a lot of documentation. So there's a lot of information. And while something looks good on a monitor or widescreen, it doesn't necessarily look as good on a really narrow screen. So you might adjust the form which then, you know, again, based on what we've found from our survey results is by and large, people are still accessing SAM from laptop and desktop for the most part, but where your team looks at these types of records, a horizontal view still needs some modifications to the rendering in mobile, or you can modify it by limiting the amount. There is a limit to 5 across right now, so that again, your data lines up a little bit nicer, like these two are lining up with these two rather than it used to just kind of be all over the screen and be difficult to see. But managing how the form is laid out is nice. And I don't know if that was new information for y'all or not. I feel like there was one other thing, and I do and don't want to get to it because I'm like, what does this even mean? Pre-fill settings. Oh, okay. So I know what this is. This allows multi-record forms to enter the last record's data. So it's a convenience field. I've seen articles online where people use this, seemingly use templated messaging, and it can bite them later in court and stuff when people recognize how often the same bits of data are relayed month after month. But because goals or progress reports, just it takes a lot of time to complete those requirements, but also just we're humans and goals take a long time to accomplish. The same goal may come up month over month. So allowing pre-fill forms from last, if I set this, it's going to ask me what do I want to set it by, and I'll set it by the due date. Just sending. And what this will do, I jump back over here. Let me go back over here to Barry. Am I going there? I don't think I actually clicked on test. If I jump over to Barry, so if it's by the due date descending, then click him. There he is. Posted option reports. It will give us, so that is complete ascent. This is our due date. And I will add one more. I'm not sure if I got this right, where my due date, I might be on the other, 7/1/25. Save. Okay, jump back and go to post adoption reports. So now I've got 2 post adoption reports that are up and coming. This one's done. If I go over here and go and edit this, I want to say that a little link shows up here that says pre-fill, but I don't. Did I just do it from a different form? Did I set it on this one? Yes. Hop back, hop back, hop back. Back. We go. Refresh this. Go back to the overview. Go over here to this guy, actually. Subform. So it is specific to the form. Par number. We want to do it on due date ascending. Let's try that. Okay, now I got the right form. Let me back it up and refresh. And now if I pop in here and edit, I'll have to duck under there. Where is my little option? Does it show here? I don't know where it shows. I really thought it was a little link right here, but it's just not showing up. The pre-fill from last. No, so I can't actually show it. I will look into it and make sure there's a better connection because you know, sometimes I do stuff on the fly and it's not working, but it does allow for data entry from every bit of data that was on this form to redisplay from the last one. So you want to be mindful if you use that. 'Cause you wouldn't want to overwrite your due date, but it definitely would, because Sam just looks at these all as field types. But unfortunately, I'll have to have a different video to show that, because I'm not finding where that function actually displays in this version of Sam. So forgive me for that. Do you guys have any other questions for multi-record forms? No? Okay. That's what I got. Thank you for joining. We're gonna continue Sam Talks in May. We just set out our schedule for that. We're gonna talk about templates and reports and then Sam lead roles. Do you guys have any other topics that are of interest to you to discuss? No? Okay, cool. Well, then maybe we'll see you next month. Until then, if you have any issues, let us know and we'll be happy to look into them. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your time. Bye, guys.
Hello.
Hey. Oh, let me stop.